Hello all, welcome to the talk show. It's me. Today we're going to introduce Jagadish Chennupati. He's the award winner of Companion of Order of Australia, which is the award equivalent to Padma Vibhushan in India. Let me introduce Mr. Jagadish Chennupati. Hello sir, how are you?
Not too bad, thank you, Srihari.
So first of all, thank you for accepting our invitation and giving this interview with us.
Thank you, it's my pleasure.
Thank you. So I just want to ask, before going to any serious questions, I just want to ask a very normal question, because every time when a normal person like us sees you, when we see like you're a researcher or scientist, normal common people will be thinking in a way that, okay, they are very knowledgeable and they don't read or anything. They don't, all the effort will be put into the work and all. First question, I want to know, what are your hobbies? What do you do in free time?
So these days, of course, is becoming a bit difficult to find free time. But of course, whenever I have free time, I like Carnatic music, and I listen to Carnatic music and any Indian classical music which I like, both Carnatic and Hindustani. And so really, and also I like to read books and books of wide variety, and not only my professional books and also in general broader books sort of thing. And I like to watch things like dance, classical dances, and I also like Western classical music as well. So anything classical dances and classical music is something which I enjoy. And even while I'm traveling in the flights, and so I typically listen to my in the background the Carnatic music or Hindustani music, and then of course keep doing my work. And so that's the beauty of music, is that you don't have to spend all your the senses on just listening to music, and you can keep doing your work as well.
I don't know how many people actually know that you received an award, uh, Companion of Order of Australia, which is equivalent to Padma Vibhushan in India. So, how do you see this award receiving, being an Indian, receiving in Australia, honored by the Australian government?
I feel really humble and grateful for receiving this highest honor in Australia. So this is the highest civilian honor in Australia, and of course, as you mentioned, is equivalent to Padma Vibhushan in India. So I really feel very grateful and very humble. And since I came with a 2-month-old baby and a 2-year contract to the Australian National University in Canberra in Australia, so that's really, very uh, satisfying that my work has been recognized by the Australian government, giving me the highest honor.
Generally, what is exactly the nanotechnology you are doing the research about? What it is about, and what is the future of nanotechnology you are doing all this research into?
So really, nanotechnology is seen as a technology of the future. So really, people are predicting that in 20 years' time, it will be about 15% of the world's economic activity will be dependent on a nanotechnology-based economic activity in various industry sectors. So nanotechnology is also expected to have an impact in electronics and computing and communications and health and defense and energy and a range of technology fields, and including biomedical. So really what we are doing in nanotechnology is really developing a new class of devices, like some of the smallest lasers in the world, and which could be used for telecommunications applications, whether it is for internet applications, for example, or otherwise they could be used for biosensing or chemical sensing applications as well. That's one area which we are working on. And we work on also a wide variety of technologies. For example, we are developing solar cells made out of nanotechnology, which we are aiming for the lightweight, high efficiency, and the low cost solar cells. There's a long way to go. Of course, whatever we do research, it takes about 20 years before you see in the marketplace. So for example, in 90s, we were working on blue LEDs and white LEDs and all. But now, of course, as you know, that the LED lights and LED bulbs is very quite commonly used. And typically, that's what it takes for you to really translate research which is carried out at the laboratory into the commercial market and to the public use of it.
What's the inspiration behind for you to get this into this kind of field, getting into the nanotechnology? So, what actually inspired you to get in to take subjects like this?
So basically, my background is in physics and material science and electronic engineering. So it's very natural for me to really get into nanotechnology. And because we have been working in the area of microtechnology, it's a logical step for us to move towards nanotechnology. So, of course, for example, if you're using computer chips, and these days the smallest features in a computer chip is about 14 nanometers. So it is truly nanotechnology now, for example. So some of the lasers which we are developing, you can really put about 10 lasers within the width of your hair. So that really tells you how small these are. You cannot see them with your naked eye, but still they produce light which could be used for communications and internet and other things. So really, it's a very exciting area for me, and also I'm able to use the skills which I've got in physics and material science and electronic engineering, because nanotechnology is very much of a multidisciplinary field. So that really helps us to be able to really address some of the key issues of importance for the next generation of technologies.
But I'm pretty sure that many people, whoever does all the electronics, can't get into this. What is the basic education that you had coming to your background? What is the education that you had made in, and where you came from?
So really, basically, I started in a small village in India, and so a place called Valluripalam near to Vijayawada in Andhra Pradesh currently. So I studied in Valluripalam till I finished my year 7. Then I moved in fact, my father ended up moving to a place called Arikailapadu in Khammam district, which is now forms into Telangana. So really, I was born in Andhra Pradesh, but of course, when I was 10 years old, since my father moved to Khammam district and to Telangana now, so that's why I say that I belong to both the states. And so, of course, then my father was a primary school teacher, and then he quit his job, and then he started farming, because I come from a farming family. So then he didn't know what to do in terms of my high school education, because there was no high school in Valluripalam. So in fact, he happened to tell one of his classmates, who was my maths teacher, Jagadeesh Garu, and then he happened to say that, why don't you ask him to come and live with us? So I was very fortunate that I had two teachers in my high school, Chagandi Sambareddy Garu and Vallur Srinivasarao Garu. So both the teachers made a huge impact in my life, where without their help I would have not been able to finish my high school. Probably I would be plowing the fields in India. So then I started studying my intermediate in JKC College in Guntur. And so then I didn't do as well in my intermediate, so I couldn't get into engineering. So then I chose the option as physics, because physics was one of the fields which I was passionate about as well. But as you know, in India, and whenever you're doing good in maths and physics and general science, and they expect you to go into engineering or medicine. But because I couldn't get engineering, and I ended up doing my bachelor's degree in physics in Tenali, which is at Nagarjuna University. Then I'd gone off to Andhra University and did my applied physics electronics, which is more of electronics engineering compacted into 3 years of MSc Tech. So that's why I got the background in physics and electronic engineering. Then I moved to Delhi University and did my MPhil and PhD. They were all in physics, but really they're focusing on material science. So that's why I got the background in physics, electronics, and then the material science. So that combination really helped me to be able to really get into areas like nanotechnology and then be able to make an impact in those fields.
So then how did you came to Australia? Is there any specific reason to choose this Australia to come over, or how it has happened?
So it so happened that I finished my PhD in Delhi University and I started teaching in Venkateshwara College in New Delhi. And so I was applying for postdoctoral fellowships all over the world, because in those days there was no internet, there was no email, and we used to get these magazines 6 months late by C-mail. So then I used to apply for everything which has been advertised in these magazines, but then they never used to give deadlines. So you don't know whether that position has been filled or otherwise you are just applying. So that's what I did, and then I used to get regret letters from everywhere, and in those days I used to joke, name a university, I got a regret letter. So I had more than 200 regret letters. And so then one of my friends, Srinivas, who is a physics professor in Delhi University now, he happened to return back from Canada, and then I was telling him that I'm very frustrated and I'm not able to get postdoctoral fellowships. I want to go and gain international experience. He said, why don't you write to David Atherton in Queen's University in Canada? And because he seemed to have very positive opinion about people from Delhi University. So only problem is that he's not an expert in semiconductors like you. His expertise is in magnetics. So then I said, okay, I'm not getting any postdoctoral fellowships in semiconductors, and then what I'm going to lose, I might as well write to this professor, and that's what I did. And then this professor in 6 months' time offered me a postdoctoral fellowships to go and work in Queen's University in Kingston, Ontario in Canada. And of course, I had to learn everything from the scratch because I didn't know anything about that field, because my field was quite different. But of course, I've established new laboratories there and then published lots of papers in that field. And but another professor was there in the same department, knew that I'm a semiconductor guy working in magnetics. One day he came and asked me, Jim Williams is starting a new department in Australian National University in Canberra, and he's looking for some good people. Are you interested in going to Australia? I thought that it's a great opportunity to get back into my own original field of semiconductors, which has been my first love. So then I said, sure, Jim. His name was also Jim Witten. And then Jim Witten ended up faxing my CV to Jim Williams. Again, for 6 months, I didn't hear anything from him. And one fine morning, I got a fax saying that we got just funding, and we are happy to offer you a 2-year position. Are you still interested in the job? Okay. So then I told him that, yes, Jim, I'm interested. But the only thing is that meanwhile, my wife finished her PhD in botany in Delhi University, and I'd gone back home and got married. And then she was pregnant. And then I said, look, we'll come after our baby's arrival. So that's how we arrived in Australia with a 2-month-old baby and a 2-year contract with Australian National University in 1990 July. So it's been a fantastic ride from my point of view. Australia is a great country to live. The quality of life is fantastic. Canberra is a great city to live, and ANU is a great place to work. I really feel that I feel very fortunate and lucky that I'm working in a great university, living in a wonderful city, and a great country.
But anyone who generally comes, okay, you came as a researcher or having something. You came as researcher, right?
That's right.
So everyone once come to a new country, they face some challenges. So on arriving to the country. So what do you think? Like, did you face any challenges with respect to anything?
Of course, Australia has changed during the last 26 years. I have been here. Of course, this is my 27th year. And for example, in Canberra, the Indian community was very small. And in fact, there were no Indian stores, for example. And then we used to go to Sydney every 3 months and then to do grocery shopping and then be able to fill the boot of the car with all the Indian groceries. And so that's one of the examples of something which was so different than now. As you know that now there's a huge amount of Indian community in Canberra, in Australia. And then, of course, there are many shops and you can get more or less everything, whatever you get in India, in Australia now sort of thing. So it's a bit quite different. And also, because of the fact that, relatively speaking, the Indian community is small, but people are not aware also that much about Indians and India. And but now, of course, people have extremely positive opinion about India, and then India is seen as a emerging economy, and then a booming country, and then a huge amount of technical people, those who have got wonderful skills, and then of course they're attracted everywhere all over the world now.
So when you came here, so you started working into research, and also what is the percentage of research that is in nanotechnology happening in Australia? So when compared to the thing what you're doing is not a small thing. It's not restricted to Australia or any other specific region. It is a global aspect which you are doing research. And what percentage of efforts do you think that Australian government or this Australia is putting into this technology when compared to the other countries?
So really, of course, science is global. There are no national boundaries, and then that's the beauty of science, is that you can go and work with anybody. I've been very fortunate. I've collaborated with people from 25 different countries in my life and co-authored papers with them. So that's the beauty of science. So of course, nanotechnology, whatever we are working on, is going to have a global impact. But that's the nature of science. And of course, it's not just one group. Multiple groups, we all work together to really develop a particular technology. So that's why working with other people is very important. As you know that Australia is a small country relative to the rest of the world in terms of population. and we produce about 3% of the world's science. So that means 90% of the science is happening in other parts of the world. So that's why the collaborations and cooperations are very important, to be able to really learn from each other and then be able to collectively develop the technologies which are going to have an impact on the society and improving the quality of life for people. So really in the area of nanotechnology, and then typically I would say that Australia, we come around 7 or 8 in the global rankings. As you know that America is of course continued to be number 1, and but China has really grown during the last 20 years in the field of nanotechnology, and now they are number 2 based on the quality of the publications which are coming out. But whereas if you look at the number of publications coming out of China, they're number 1 now. So really, that's you would have asked me 20 years back, will China will be number 2 or number 1 in nanotechnology? I would have said, are you kidding me? But of course, they consistently they've put a lot of effort, a lot of resources. They've attracted a lot of bright people back to China from expatriate Chinese, as well as international experts to come and spend some time in China. So that's why they've really progressed quite significantly, sort of thing. Overall, Australia does very well with respect to the size of the population and size of the research, scientific activity which we have got. And government has identified nanotechnology as one of the important areas for the future of the country in terms of, for example, Prime Minister Malcolm Turnbull is one of the planks is innovation. And if you want to really grow the economy and then create the new jobs, and we really need to go for knowledge-based economies and knowledge-based industries. So that's why technologies like nanotechnology are going to have a huge impact. So the Australian government realizes the importance of that one, and the Australian government is also investing quite significantly. As I said, that Australia comes about 7th or so in the world rankings of the research activity and then the amount of effort which is going on in Australia, which is pretty good for the size of the country.
Being a small size, being in 7th or 8th position is very good, in fact.
Of course, it's important because of the fact that the competing economies or competing countries are really investing more. We should not be complacent and we should continue to be investing. So that's how you can be a major player as well.
I have a question here. When you said that China is having its number 1 position with respect to investments or whatever the technology they were using, with respect to the size of the population and all, I say that the China and India are equally having the same, number of population. So, where is that our India is falling when compared with the China? Do you think that the Indian, not the government, where do you think that Indians can actually, increase what kind of strategies they can make over in order to increase the technologies or investments or whatever it is? In what way do you think India has to do?
India is relatively speaking doing well, but of course China has started investing at a much larger scale than India and much earlier than India. So that's why China is in the position where it is today. But India has recognized the importance of nanotechnology, and India has got a program called Nano Mission, and the Nano Mission targetedly invested significant amount of funds to encourage the research activities in nanotechnology and also facilities to develop, because when you talk about smaller and smaller things which you have to manipulate matter at a small scale, you need to have larger and larger pieces of equipment and they become more and more expensive. And in October-November period, I visited India and I was very impressed with, for example, Indian Institute of Science Bangalore has got a beautiful center for nanoscience and nanotechnology, which is a purpose-built $50 million facility. And Jawaharlal Nehru Center for Advanced Scientific Research of Professor C.N.R. Rao, and has also got outstanding facilities there. And I visited other IITs, and other IITs also have got some excellent facilities, sort of thing. And India started doing it, but again, there is more need for investing more and in terms of training people, and then even sending particularly younger researchers to go overseas and gain the new skills and bring those skills back to the country, so that really India can build up major research activities in this field and even further strengthen whatever it's already got. But also, if you go to Bangalore, there's a booming economy, and also a lot of it's called as a startup city. There are a lot of new startups are happening, and many of them are the biotechnology, information technology, but some of the nanotechnology companies are also starting. So the opportunities are enormous, and it's a matter for the governments to really realize the importance of nanotechnology and keep investing, in a sustained and strategic way.
When I compare some things with the India, so if any student a student in India has to wanted to do research or wanted to be a kind of scientist, wanted to come into this kind of profession, what is the quality of education? How do we compare our researchers or the education quality? How do you see the comparison between the Indian education and with the Australian education? Do you think we can make it?
It is possible, but of course, Indian education system is huge numbers. Whenever you got a huge numbers, it's always a challenge to be able to really educate all of them at very high levels. For example, look at means you're talking about 24 million population and 1.2 billion population. So the issues are quite complex and different. So that's something which we need to realize, that sort of thing. So that's why I would encourage people to really leverage on the links in India has got, and then really send some of the people overseas and then bring those skills back, sort of thing. Again, Indian education system really very much focuses on the theoretical knowledge, but the minute you talk about experimental facilities and other things, relatively speaking, are not as good. For example, in engineering colleges, many of them, in India, for example, means the facilities are not as good as you would like them to be. So in the process, students don't develop that confidence, I can go and do hands-on things. Theory-wise, they are very good. You ask them a question, theoretical question, they are very happy to answer very well, like anybody else. But the minute you want to go into the lab and then really have to do some experiments hands-on, they're a bit more hesitant because of the fact that they don't have the experience of really using sophisticated equipment and other things, sort of thing. So that's why we need to invest in terms of experimental facilities, so that students really gain those hands-on skills, so that they develop that confidence. So thereby they can go and travel anywhere in the world and then be able to really make an impact very easily. Because most of the students are very smart. So from that point of view, it's not a question of smartness, it's more of providing them the right skills and right training, right opportunities, so that they can really be able to make the difference to the country.
Education, yes. When a person, in fact, a common man wanted to study research or wanted to be into this research side of the scientific research side, uh, for a common man, definitely it's so big, and also, oh my God, I can't do that. It's not my part of job. It's a very tough job. It needs a lot of dedication and determination in order to read that kind of. Many people, in fact, will have. I should be very knowledgeable or very brave in order to study all that kind of stuff. So how do you see this kind of aspect? Do you see like, okay, he should be a born brilliant in or so, or what do you say on this? Do you accept that?
So first and foremost, the important thing is that people have to choose something they are passionate about. So the passion is very, very important initially, because if you don't have the passion, and then it becomes very difficult to really achieve anything, sort of thing. That's why I encourage people to choose something we are passionate about. If you're passionate about something, it doesn't matter how many hours you're spending time on that thing, because you're having fun. Because I tell people that I'm having fun doing science, so that's why I do science. That's one thing. And then the next thing is that means the most of the people, those are doing bachelor's degree and then completing bachelor's degrees in most of the places, they've got above average intelligence. So that is more than sufficient to be successful. So, but what you need is the hard work and persistence and perseverance. So, however intelligent you may be, without hard work, you cannot be successful. So that's why it is important to really realize the importance of hard work. And there are no shortcuts and the easy way to achieve bigger and better things. Always you say that, okay, you may have a big dream or a big goal in achieving something big in life, but start in one small steps, go step by step, and then also stay determined, think positive, and never give up. So the failures are pathway to success. So that's why I always tell people, don't be afraid of failure. If you're afraid of failure, you're not going to be successful. So you learn from your failures and then you move forward. So that's why never give up is an important thing. As I told you earlier, that I had more than 200 regret letters. I could have given up and said, well, and I have no hope of going overseas. I'll be just doing whatever, I've got the job there, sort of thing. But I would not be here today. So that's why it is important not to give up. Think always positive and develop the self-confidence. Self-confidence is absolutely critical for the success of an individual. And more you learn and more you believe in yourself and you develop that self-confidence, then that self-confidence and the persistence and perseverance and then the passion and then the hard work, you can achieve anything in life.
If I ask you, how do you see the education? Education also only gives the knowledge, or does education give more than that?
So basically, the education is something, it gives a broader outlook. So basically, you may be learning something small, but that in itself is, means the world is changing so fast. Whatever you learned during your high school studies or college studies or university studies, things are all changing. Knowledge is changing. But that gives you the ability to learn new things, learn to learn. So that's what really provides you the education. But also ability to think broadly. If somebody says something and then it makes you to think critically. Critical thinking, analytical abilities, and those are the things which really education provides you. So thereby you're able to really differentiate between, means truth to some things which are really fluffy, and then you're able to figure out what is fluffy and what is truth.
Okay, I will ask you in a very nominal terms, in a very simple question, where a common man has to understand, like me. So when I ask what is this nanotechnology, if I ask you in a very simple terms, um, how do you how you say the future of the nanotechnology in a very simple words? Example, comparing with something.
Okay, so nanotechnology, for example, you can really use nanotechnology to be able to treat cancer, for example. So nowadays, when you got cancer, what happens is that you get radiotherapy or chemotherapy, where we are bombarding the entire body with lots of drugs. So that's got a lot of side effects and it also becomes expensive. So for example, just to give one example of nanotechnology, so thereby what you could do is that now you can really create nano capsules. So thereby you can send those nano capsules only they attach themselves to only to the cancer cells, nothing else. So then you activate that medicine, so thereby only the cancer cells get damaged or killed, but all the other cells won't get affected. That means the side effects will be reduced, the amount of drugs which you're using gets reduced, which will reduce the cost, and then which really can make a huge impact in terms of improved quality of life. Again, nanotechnology can provide you the opportunity to be able to detect cancer at the much early stage. Lots of times, current technologies which we use for detection of cancer, for example, and so by the time you detected it, sometimes it could be too late because cancer has metastasized. That means cancer cells are already moving around in various parts of the body, so that becomes much more difficult to treat. But whereas if we can really detect the cancer molecules at one molecule level, single molecule level, and then what happens is that you are really detecting cancer at a much earlier stage. So thereby you start treating at a much earlier stage. So in turn, you can really treat that one and keep it under control much better than what we're able to do now, for example. So that's one example of the case where a common man can relate to how the nanotechnology is going to have an impact, for example.
So cancer is a very big problem at this point of time. We don't have any medicines or
There's no cure for it, and of course, you can really keep it under control.
with the nanotechnology. Maybe it is on research at this point of time.
Of course, yeah, sure. Of course, there's a lot of research going on in cancer research, and of course, the nanotechnology is going to help in terms of, at least in terms of discovery or the detection and then the treatment as well. So that's one area. For example, you've got a brain tumor, and then what you could do is that you could send some magnetic nanoparticles and then again attach them only to the tumor cells, not the normal part of the brain. So then you can apply the magnetic field on and off from outside. So these nanoparticles get magnetized, demagnetized. So in the process, what happens? They generate heat, so that they can selectively kill the tumor without affecting any parts of the brain. So that means you don't have to do brain surgery and then potentially can lead to problems and other things. So you can really do it in a very benign way, sort of thing. So again, nanotechnology is expected to have a huge impact in everyday life. Not only communication, internet, for example, the speed of internet is going to increase, the speed of the computers are going to increase, and we are going to move towards the so-called quantum communications and quantum computing. So that means you can really have highly secure communications, because security is becoming an issue. For example, a lot of people trying to really, grab the information by tapping the information and other things. But if you got the quantum communications, they're so secure because you're sending one photon at a time. So that means one light particle at a time. If somebody tries to capture that one, then the other person knows that photon has not arrived, and the system really collapses. In other words, that information gets destroyed, for example. So it becomes very secure information sort of thing. When you're going to bank and then want to get money or check your bank account or other things, they become much more secure rather than currently there is more potential for other people able to really tap the information sort of thing.
Apart from this technology also, some people, there is also many people generally think that because of this technology, having more of the technology is actually decreasing the physical activities where the normal common man is doing. So do you think that the technology, ongoing technology increase will actually decreases the individual effort or what are the physical effort, what they were doing?
Of course, there's a potential for that. That's why I think people have to also really, technology can do good things and not so good things. So it's always how we make use of it. Like for example, you got a fire, you can use it for cooking and then heating and all these things, but also you can go and burn houses. So the same thing applies to technology as well. You can use it for good purposes, not so good purposes as well. So that's why it is as a society, we need to really use the technology for the common good and the benefit of the society sort of thing. But of course, human activity, of course, nowadays we are more and more spending in front of our computers or laptops or otherwise on smartphones, and then not really spending enough time physical activity sort of thing. That could have an impact on health, for example. And so that's something which is already there. People have been identifying. Then the blue light which we use for computer screens or even for the phone screens and other things, because though you get the white light and what essentially what they got is a blue light. So if you are exposed to the blue light for late into the night, so then you may not be able to sleep well because the right chemicals are not being generated in the brain, because essentially then in the process what happens is that you're not able to go to bed. So that's why it is important we use the technology in a careful way, and then also realize that you can use the technology for your good in terms of how to, for example, you can go and be able to talk to your parents, those are in India, for example, and then do lots of things for good things. But at the same time, we need to also realize that technology can solve all our problems, and then we need to also look after ourselves. And that's why it is important to really maintain that critical physical activity. So that's why sport and other things become important, and that's why we should encourage our kids to not play all the time video games, than the actual physical activities sort of thing. But again, parents can act as a role model as well. Generally, children don't listen to parents what they say, but they follow them. So that's why parents could be an example which they can set for kids, so thereby kids follow them.
That's good. I know you're so busy with the research activities and whatever the things you're doing. What kind of support you get from your family, going to your personal life?
Okay, sure. But basically, I can honestly say that, without the support of my family, I'm history. You know, so really, the support which I get from my wife and my daughter, and of course back home, my sister, and the support which I get is phenomenal. And see, as you know, that I spend long hours at work. Also, I'm always traveling as well. Approximately, I spend about 5 to 6 months in a year outside Australia. So most of the time I'm traveling sort of thing. So in fact, sometimes when my friends ask me, you got a family? I tell that yes, I got a wife and a daughter, but then they are so supportive. Then sometimes my friends ask me that your wife must be an angel. So then she really encourages to go and do what you are passionate about, and then. So of course, you can only achieve anything and everything in life with the love and affection and support of your family. So that's why it is important for us to realize and acknowledge the contribution which they make to our passion and our desire to really achieve something or the other sort of thing. Families are very important. So that's why also I tell particularly my younger colleagues is that spending quality time with your family is absolutely critical. So particularly with your children, because your child's childhood only comes once. Don't miss it. When they're young also, we're also under pressure because you got a big mortgage to pay. And then also professionally, you want to really prove yourself that you're good. And in the process, we spend crazy amounts of time in terms of work sort of thing. So I always tell people the most important thing in life is your own health. If you don't have health, you cannot do much. And you're a burden on your family and a burden on your society as well. And then the next thing is your family, and then the next thing is your work. But unfortunately, all of us, including myself, we give too much importance to work at the cost of our own health and at the cost of our own family. So that's why it is important to realize that one before you lose those ones, and then really value how important health is. So that's why physical activity and other things are important. And then also value your family and then show your appreciation and spend quality time with them. And then, of course, work sort of thing.
When coming to the students studying in Australia, we know many Indians are coming to Australia to study many other courses. In that, there are many courses which are related to IT, or some courses other than IT which they are interested into. What kind of suggestion, if I ask, like you give them, if someone are interested into coming to this research side or the scientist, whatever, what kind of suggestions you would give to them?
So really, whenever you try to do research, research field is a long-term one. If you want to really finish your degree and then want to go and find a job, and then of course you can go and do that one, and I think areas like IT will help you to be able to go and find a job sort of thing. But that's why also I tell people that you do research because you're passionate about it. I always ask the students whenever somebody comes and asks me they want to do PhD with me, I ask them why. And then they look at me in a surprising way because all of the professors try to really convince me that doing PhD is good for me. But you ask the question why. I ask them that you have to do PhD for right reasons. If you feel that research is something which I feel passionate about and that's what to spend all my life on my research, so then of course you can go and do PhD sort of thing. But sometimes somebody comes and says that, oh, I'm doing PhD because I'm thinking that I'll get a job. But then I say that, look, there's no surety that just because you did your PhD, you get a job. So it's really important for you to realize and then the, reasons for which you are doing PhD or otherwise research. And if you're passionate about it and you really want to dedicate your life to doing research, and so by all means, I would encourage you to go and do that one. But if you really feel that I want to do just PhD with the hope that I'll get a job, and of course you may get a job, and in fact I have been very fortunate that many of my students, close to 50 of them now, PhD students, they're all working in industry in various parts of the world, and they're working in universities like even places like Cambridge University, Oxford University, and University of Manchester, University of Cardiff, and various places. But also they're working in some of the national labs in CSIRO here, National Measurement Institute, and also the Sandia National Laboratory, Jet Propulsion Laboratory, and Lawrence Livermore National Laboratory in US, and all sort of things. So really, means if people, of course, are passionate about research and that's what they want to dedicate, their opportunities are there. But of course, path is bit more prolonged, bit more time-taking. But that's something you need to have the persistence and the patience and ability to be able to continue to really, go through some difficult periods of life sort of thing. As I told you in my own life, it's not been an easy path where I've reached to whatever I've reached to the distinguished professor of the university now. But of course, I started off as a postdoctoral fellow with a 2-year contract with a working visa. I didn't even come as a permanent resident visa or anything of that sort.
So here, what do you think? Like you achieved all this because you are passionate of the work what you are doing, or do you think, when I ask yourself, do you think only the passion has helped you to achieve all this, or the hard work with some knowledge also?
Of course, the first and foremost important thing is a passion. If you don't have passion, you won't put the hard work. So that's why the passion is the most important one. Once you got the passion and then you are willing to put the hard work because you are passionate about something, and so in the process, that goes in hand. But of course, you need to have the knowledge as well. But of course, if you don't have the other two, even if you got knowledge, and you're not going to reach anywhere, sort of thing. Because I have got some of my own students, even some of them are brighter than me, but some, they in the middle of a PhD they left because they didn't have the determination to be able to put the hard work necessary to be able to be successful, sort of thing. And they've gone off and then found other jobs and other things, sort of thing. So that's why the passion and then the hard work, and then of course intrinsic abilities are important. But even if you got even intrinsic abilities or intellectual abilities are average, and still you can achieve everything by using choosing the passionate field and putting the hard work needed to achieve that. But another thing which really a lot of times people don't really realize, Srihari, is that the communication skills, they're very important as well. So really, sometimes people think that if I'm technically good, I can achieve anything and everything. That may be true to some level, but if you're really climbing the ladder to higher level positions and other things, your ability to work with your team and working as part of a team, working as a leader of a team, and those skills are very important. And those things you can only do provided your communication skills are good. If you don't know how to communicate effectively with your team members, you cannot inspire your team members. So that's why the communication skills, both in the written form and oral form, are absolutely critical. And so that's why I encourage people to, while doing your studies or whatever you're doing, develop also the interpersonal skills and ability to lead a team, ability to work as part of a team, and ability to really communicate well, both in the written and oral form. And those are all important also if you want to be successful in life.
So other than this research side, so what are the other activities in fact you are involved in? So do you get any time to involve in other activities?
So basically, we do lots of interesting things. And for example, both my wife Vidya and I have started the Chennupati and Vidya Jagadish Endowment at the Australian National University to really to provide opportunities for students or researchers from the developing world and including India to come and spend some time at the ANU and be able to do some research for about 3 months or so, like a summer break, for example. Students come and then spend some time here to be able to access the state of the art facilities and be able to interact with lots of experts here. So thereby they can gain new skills and know self enhance self confidence, and so that they can go back and then be able to really feel confident that I can do anything in life, sort of thing. So in fact, this endowment we only launched about a year back or so, and we had the first batch of students last year. From it so happened that all four of them happened to be from IIT Mumbai, and they were excellent students, and four of them, and three boys and one girl. And so they came and spent about 10 weeks with us, and then in fact they were able to access multi-million dollar facilities and be able to do hands-on experiments on them. So then they said that that's the big difference for them while they were studying there, and they're not allowed to touch the major big piece of equipment because people are always worried about breaking those equipment and all. But we encourage our students to really go and you know do have fun and play with them, and in the sense do experiments on their with their own hands, sort of thing. Of course, they get trained properly by our expert staff, and then they are given the license to go and then really use the equipment, sort of thing. That really gives us self confidence. I can go and do anything, sort of thing. That's one thing which we do, and so that seems to be really, means helping people. And then good news is that this is an endowment which is going to last forever. So it means even tomorrow, if I am run over by a truck, and still four people or five people every year are going to benefit from this. So a young researcher is coming from Gujarat in February. He's going to be here with us for 3 months. So he's an assistant professor in one of the universities. So he wants to come and spend some time, and we gave them the opportunity to do that sort of thing. So these sorts of things, not only students, but also the to the young researchers also, they can come and spend some time. So thereby they just develop that self confidence and then feel that they can really get inspired and then be able to really choose research as a career path, sort of thing. And other things which we do is also that there is something called Kiva. Kiva is a global microfinance organization which operates in 79 countries. So this is really micro loans which are given. If, for example, an entrepreneur in some developing country in the world, and so want to buy a buffalo or a cow, and want to really, develop them, means get milk and then be able to really make a living out of that. Or otherwise, they've got a shop and they want to have more stock in that one. Or otherwise, they have got a child, they want to send them to university, they want to have a fee sort of thing. So really, if they want, for example, $1,000, instead of one individual giving $1,000, 40 people in various parts of the world, each of them give 25 US dollars each. So thereby, means you're able to help them. And then the good news is that even if they, for example, default, you're only losing $25, which is not a big amount of money, sort of thing. But also, everybody can afford that sort of money. And so basically also that we to date we have given about 1,100 loans to these people. The beauty of it is that the rate of return payment back is more than 99%. These are interest-free loans from our side. But of course, the local agencies, whoever is distributing the loans, they charge some interest from them. But people are happy to have that one sort of thing. And most importantly, we have given the loans for about people in 70 different countries. It is from Paraguay to Peru to India to means Bangladesh to all parts of the world, and including US and Azerbaijan and all various places. But also, we mostly give to women. We feel that if women are empowered, and the families are stronger, and the societies are even stronger, because women really take care of their families and particularly take care of kids and all things sort of thing. So really, 90% of the loans which we've given are for women sort of thing. So again, as I said, that it's distributed all over the world. The third area which we support is something called solar aid. There are about 700 million Africans don't have access to electricity. So that means, in fact, I studied in front of a kerosene lamp till I finished my year 7. There was no electricity in my home, in my village at that time. So I know that the impact of that in terms of health issues. For studies during nighttime is difficult for kids because you got a very small lamp and you don't get much light. But also you're breathing these kerosene fumes. So then they've got a huge impact on your health as well. So the solar aid, what it does is that if we donate 3 UK pounds, so the UK aid agency matches that funding, and then a solar lamp is really given at a very subsidized rate to the African families. So thereby they can afford to go and buy those ones. So in the process, they really don't have to use kerosene lamps anymore. So because they can go and take their lantern and then keep outside, there's a small solar panel is there, and then they got a LED light. So we work on solar cells, we work on LEDs. So really, these are really having a huge impact on people. So then by donating these ones, to date we have donated about 330 lamps. So that means 330 families have benefited from this program. Their children can educate themselves better because they get a much brighter light and they can feel much more comfortable to do that. And also health impact is much better sort of thing. And also thirdly, that the environmental impact is also better, is less, because of the fact that you're not really pumping lots of kerosene fumes into the environment, which is not good for the environment as well. So it's really helping in three different ways. So these are the few things which we end up getting involved sort of thing. Because ultimately what we want to do is that, want to make the difference to the world, make a difference to others. We can always focus on ourselves, but there's no limit for that. So importance is always look at what difference you can make to people around you, and then in the broader society, in a global. See, nowadays world is a global village. So that's why you can really help anybody sitting in your office. So that's why I encourage my friends also. I have introduced, in fact, lots of my friends also to these programs, and they themselves are also started donating some of their funds to these programs. Sort of thing. So it's an important one. Again, our endowment, means ANU is if you're an Australian citizen or Australian resident, and any donations which you make to our endowment through the Australian National University are tax deductible as well. So, which is, in fact, many of our friends have also donated some of the funds to our endowment as well.
So this ANU, is this only for Indian students who wanted to do that, or are you encouraging across the globe?
So anybody from the developing countries, because see, I started from a small village in India, and of course gone through, means with many people's help, I have reached where I've reached. Without the help of many people in various stages of my life, I would not be here today. So that's why, as an expression of gratitude to them, and we want to help anybody in the developing world. Because of course, developed world, what happens is that we get a lot of interns from Europe. Because, for example, during the last 18 months, I had interns from France, Germany, Sweden, Netherlands, Italy, and Taiwan. But we always happy to have them because of the fact that they don't need any money because they come with their own support. But whenever we get requests from India and other developing countries for coming and spending some time at the ANU, we say no to them because they need financial support. So that's why I was feeling guilty for quite some time. I come from a small village in India, but these are the people, those who probably will benefit from coming to the ANU and spending some time here doing research. So that's where we, both my wife and I, have discussed this one, and then we said, look, we need to do something, and so that's why we've gone off. And we didn't want to restrict to India, but of course, most of the time we get applications from India because I am known in India, and so people in India seem to be aware of this. So that's why these days when I go to conferences, and I also put a slide about this endowment so that other countries people also can start applying. For example, if you are sitting in Ethiopia or Eritrea, for example, and means coming to the ANU and be able to really access the state-of-the-art facilities, it's a big step function in terms of their career development and the progression, and then the inspiration which they can get, and the skills that they can gain, sort of thing. So that's why we really want people from poorer the country, better it is, because it will have a much higher impact for themselves.
So when you say the people from India are coming here, so all the expenses that you
So we provide, yes, we provide the airfare, economy class airfare, as well as living expenses for them. For example, for a PhD student, the student who came from, who are doing either BTech degree or integrated MTech or MSc degrees from IIT Mumbai who came, and for a 10-week period, we ended up giving them $6,000. So that means they didn't have to pay any money. So that means, and all their expenses have been covered. In fact, when they finished their trip and I asked them the question, whatever the money which we gave you, was it sufficient? He said, no, it was more than sufficient. In fact, even we saved a little bit of money, sort of. So that made me happy that, they didn't have to spend any money from their pockets.
so instead you are actually doing a very good thing. In fact, helping them, giving the education knowledge. Also, you're paying them for the work what they.
Absolutely, absolutely. That's the thing, because see, whenever we get students from developing world, it becomes very difficult for them to really spend that sort of money. So when you talk about $6,000, you're talking about means 3 lakhs Indian rupees. And of course, for if it is an academic, we end up giving $9,000 for a 3-month period. For example, this gentleman who is coming from Gujarat, and then we told him that we'll pay his return class, economy class airfare, return airfare, as well as $2,000 per month to cover his living expenses and other things. So because if you're coming as an academic, it becomes much more difficult to live in a shared accommodation, but whereas students can really stay in a shared accommodation and things of that sort of thing. So really, it's sort of helping people, and with the hope that that makes a difference in their lives.
Okay. So when people coming from India, many of the migrants coming to Australia, they come for many of the parents, they see the better education to their kids. Most of the parents will actually think that the education for their kids should be, very good. Of course, Australia is also giving that kind of education, better education. So when we see with the education aspect, so what do you say like the education here when compared to our Indian education over there to here? How you see that, and what do you suggest in order to grow up with a better quality of education in Australia?
So basically, the challenge is that in the Indian education system, one of the problems is that most of the focus is remembering what has been taught and then reproducing in the class, sort of thing, and in the examinations. So, but that sometimes it doesn't really help, because that means you're not really using what you've learned in a creative way, in your own way, to be able to really solve problems, for example. So that one of the good things with the Australian education system is that it encourages people to think. and also learn to learn. Sometimes students come and tell me, oh, but lecturers are not teaching me as much as my lecturers used to teach me in India, for example. But of course, thinking in India is that, well, you have to teach everything what they need to know, sort of. But here, the system is that we you cannot teach everything to people, because science is changing, knowledge is changing. What you have to teach them is not everything, but to learn, steer them in the right direction, how to go and find information, and then how to really solve problems. And so that way it helps from the point for them to be able to go and find information in the future, and then also allow them to learn how to use the knowledge which they've gained to solve a problem, for example. So that's why the system is a bit different. But again, the problem is also in India, large numbers. So that means, it becomes much more difficult when you got large numbers to deal with, sort of thing. But I think we need to gradually change the system such that so the people are really thinking rather than memorizing and reproducing, sort of thing. But I'm very pleased to hear that some of the IIT students, those who came from IIT Mumbai, they told me that in IITs, more or less, the education system is similar to what is in Australia and all. So that means, some, the top institutions in the country are already following the Western way of really teaching, sort of thing. But of course, it may not be really reaching to the masses yet. So that's why we need to really encourage that one and incentivize institutions also to really teach. And maybe train also teachers as well. Because sometimes what happens is that, you have been taught in a particular way, and then you become a lecturer and you teach in the same way. But that's why if we train the lecturers, think differently, and then hopefully they will change their way of teaching, and then hopefully they'll start changing the student. Thereby, it helps the students as well. But again, the facilities are also important. As I told you, here, even the ANU, for example, some of the first year bachelor's degree students, they start coming and doing research in our labs. And so that means, they start really, learning how to do research from the day, more or less, in the first semester itself, particularly some of the top ones, top students. So thereby, means they can really choose whether they want to do research or not. At least they're gaining the skills of that. So of course they may choose not to do it, but that's fine. That's their choice. They're not, nobody's supposed to do it. But if they want, they're also aware that what options are available in research as well. So that way they got that exposure. That exposure is an important one.
So this ANU is also giving for the students here in Australia who wanted to do some kind of research, or you allowing them as well to come
So of course,
and work with you for some time?
yeah, sure. We do have something called vacation scholarships. So they are targeted towards students, those are in the bachelor's degree level, and then they can come and do some research, and they could be from Australia, New Zealand, sort of thing. Because of the funding constraints and other things, and they mainly target the Australian, New Zealand students. And so that's where I think our endowment is adding towards people from the developing countries. So that's a sort of a bonus with respect to what's not been done. Otherwise, we have identified a gap in the system which has not been covered, and then hopefully that's helping. But the only thing is that we're only able to help 4 or 5 people per year. I wish I have more money so that we can donate more money to the ANU so that we can help more people.
Good, in fact. Coming to this nanotechnology, the research what you are doing in Australia, what is the effort you want to put in to our Indian government? Are you planning something, or the Indian government has approached you or in that way? So using your efforts for the Indian nanotechnology research.
So basically, we got something called as Australia-India Strategic Research Fund. So the nanotechnology has been identified as one of the important areas for both the countries. So this fund, which I have been involved with for more than 10 years, so from the Australian side, but of course Indian side, some of my colleagues are involved with that sort of thing. So really we're encouraging, the purpose of the fund is to really have exchange of young researchers from both the countries. So some of the younger researchers can go and spend some time in India. Some of the younger researchers from India can come and spend some time in Australia. So thereby they start developing these linkages in the early stages of their career. Thereby they don't those relationships can last for a long time. Okay. Also, we got something called a project grants, and again these project grants allow people to really propose some research projects, and then they can work together on a problem which is of common interest. So we have had in the past a project with the Delhi University and Professor Srinivas, whom I was mentioning to you earlier, and that's finished a few years back. So now, in fact, we have applied for the funding with the Indian Institute of Science, Bangalore, for a joint project in the current round. So we'll wait and see what's going to happen, sort of thing. So certainly, there's a lot of opportunities there. It's a matter of really identifying those right groups to work with. And particularly now, in India, also the facilities are outstanding now in some of the institutions like Indian Institute of Science, Bangalore, and other IITs. And so there are a lot of opportunities to really work together. And also having the complementary expertise, complementary facilities also helps.
So you said that you are traveling across the globe, and you also visited India recently. The response you got, I think I have seen that it was very much tremendous. So what kind of enthusiasm our Indians are showing across this kind of field through to a research or whatever?
The thing is that I was, in fact, my trip in October, November time has been, in fact, supported by the Australian High Commission in New Delhi. And I visited Chennai, Bangalore, and Hyderabad, and Mumbai, and Delhi. And the response has been phenomenal. And then the response of the community has been phenomenal in terms of the media coverage, and including TV coverage as well as the newspapers and other things, sort of thing. And also the enthusiasm and interest in terms of really what people want to work with us has been quite significant. In fact, purpose of my trip was to really showcase what Australia can offer to India. Also bring both Australia and India together to really also to showcase how excellence can be supported by having linkages between both the countries. But also sometimes people have, in India particularly, what happens is that people, whenever you say that I am from Australia, people immediately respond saying that, oh, it's a racist country. So that's really, it's unfortunate. So really, based on the fact that there were some mishappenings have happened with some students in Melbourne and Sydney a few years back, and people still remember those things, and media really over-projected these things and giving this impression that Australia is a racist country. So if Australia is a racist country, hey, a small guy from a small village in India, how can that be possible that he gets recognized by the Australian government with the highest civilian honor? You know. So basically what happened at that time is that these students were living in the places where the rent is cheap. Rent is always cheap in the rough areas. But also students are working in the, whether it's a petrol bunk or restaurants or something, because to really be able to support themselves. And of course, in the middle of the night, if you go back to rough areas, it doesn't matter whether you're Indian or Australian or American, there's always a potential for being mugged or being, something can happen, sort of thing. So of course, there are always rough areas in every part of the world and every city in the world, sort of thing. So this is an unfortunate situation, but unfortunately, Indian media has really, overexposed this as racist attacks, sort of thing. But of course, Australian government has immediately responded very effectively at various levels, and creating community councils involving Indian students and Indian community leaders and then the police and others, local government people. So those issues have been addressed very quickly, and then those issues have gone, sort of thing. That's no longer an issue. But still in India, that perception is there. So that means there's more work need to be done to really change that perception about Australia. And I hope I can be an ambassador for an ambassador for India in Australia and ambassador for Australia in India, because I consider myself as both now, because of the fact that I was born and brought up in India, for which, by the way, I'm most grateful for all the education which I received. I'm also grateful to Australia for providing me the opportunity to prove myself as a scientist and giving me the opportunity to grow as a scientist as well.
So do you think many students from India are coming to Australia? The majority of the percentage of students who are making their studies in Australia are Indians. So the quality of education in Australia and the courses what they were doing. So is that the some people says that okay, the education, I'm just trying to do some course over here. After that, he want to, irrespective of anything, he want to stay here and he is changing the course to some extent. Many people are coming here as to do some of the other course. They want to settle in Australia, but there is some gap is there in between these two, coming on purpose of education, and between settling, they have to face lots of problems in order to get settled here. How do you see here whether the Australian government is or the Australian education system is trying to make it more from the Indian students, or that is what it is?
Okay. So of course, first of all, the largest international students in Australia are Chinese, largest number. They're about 90,000 or so at the moment, at least. And then, of course, Indian students are about 65,000 or so, sort of thing. So it's a quite significant number. Second largest student community is from India. There's no doubt about that. So there are two groups of Indians, those who come here. One are the professional ones, those who have done their bachelor's degree there, they want to do their master's degree and gain some skills and then want to settle down here. And so there another group of people, those who come for vocational courses. So the vocational courses are, some people come for hairdressing or the hospitality industry or cooking and all these things. So those are the people, those who are quite different, and their main purpose is to really settle down in Australia. I am aware that there are some Indians, those who came to Australia to do Indian cookery courses here. So that immediately tells you, you don't need to come all the way from India to Australia to learn about Indian cooking. So of course, these are the courses which have been really designed to really give them some qualifications so that they can apply for a permanent resident visas and be able to get permanent residency sort of thing. So in those cases, what happens is that most of the time, because they've done the courses which are not really geared towards really providing them any significant skills, but more of providing them the opportunity to become a permanent resident visa holders. So then, of course, those students will always end up doing something or the other which is quite different than what they've studied. Sort of thing. So the others, those who come to really do the university level degrees and the master's degree or so, and most of the time, lots of times students come from IT degrees and other things, and then lots of IT degree students can go and then find jobs in IT and other things. But of course, if they go and do specialized courses, and then that becomes much more difficult because of the fact that sometimes you may not have the industry in those particular areas in Australia, which becomes much more difficult for them to really find a job, and they have to really change their field of expertise. By the way, there's nothing wrong in changing field of expertise, because end of the day, you have to choose something which you're passionate about. And as long as you're passionate about what you're doing is not important. And then, of course, as long as you're happy, that's perfectly fine sort of thing. So that's why you don't have to feel that I did so-and-so degree, I should only be doing this sort of thing. Really, the education really provides you analytical abilities, critical thinking, ability to really work as part of a team, and ability to really communicate well, and ability to be able to think critically. So these are the problem-solving skills. And those skills you can apply for anything in the world, and it doesn't matter what you do. So that's why I would encourage people to not worry too much about what they've studied, how their abilities and skills could be used usefully, allow them to be able to flourish and then be able to achieve whatever the goals and dreams they set for themselves. But of course, I have to acknowledge that the international education has become a major industry in Australia. So many universities target international students, and in fact, some of the universities very much dependent on the international students to be able to really balance their books, for example, sort of thing. So that's typically the governments, in general have cut funding to the university sector over the years, and so in the process, the universities have to rely on other sources of income, and international students become a major income source. Sort of thing. So that's something which, of course, that's why. But most interestingly, I found sometimes when I ask students, why are you studying? Why are you not studying at the ANU? Why are you studying at, say, another smaller university? They say that, well, if I'm studying at the ANU, then I have to spend all my time to get my degree. I will not have time to really work and then be able to support myself. If I work in a smaller university, even I can spend 1 or 2 days to study and then be able to fulfill the requirements. and still be able to use the remaining time to be able to work and support themselves sort of thing. So the different people use choose different institutions depending on their particular circumstances.
So here I see some people, they want to earn money also other than the studies. Yes, they want to
Self-support themselves. They typically come with initial fee or probably the one semester fee, and then they later on start working. And in fact, I'm aware of some students, those who in fact started supporting their families back home, while not only they paid off their loan, and they're supporting families as well while working here, while being a student as well, sort of thing. But of course, once if they finish their student this thing, most interestingly, of course, the students have to fulfill the English requirements if they want to get permanent resident visa and other things. But in addition to the meeting the points requirements and other things, sort of thing. And I'm aware of some students, they've done very well in the universities, but they were not able to pass the English exam, and in fact, they left the Australia, sort of thing. So that's why, again, I emphasize the importance of language and then the communication skills and written, both in oral and written form, how important they are, even not only to get your degree, but also if you want to stay in Australia as well. So that's my advice to upcoming students, those who want to come and then really want permanent residency and other things. But of course, these rules are changing with time. And then that's something which people also need to remember, that keep monitoring what current rules are. Don't rely on what the old rules are. And if your aim is to really want to study and ultimately want to become a permanent resident visa holder or something, and so then you need to monitor that one sort of thing if you want to achieve both the goals. But also there are some students, those who finish their degrees here, have gone off to overseas, and I know some students have gone to America and other places. They are doing very well because Australian degrees are well recognized globally. So that makes a huge difference as well.
So coming back to your research side, I heard that you got nearly about 5 US patents for doing some things on your own. So can you tell us what it exactly? It's not an easy thing that to get some kind of patents like this. Being an Indian doing this kind of work, can you just tell some?
So basically, the patents which we've developed are we developed some new class of lasers. And these lasers were very much in demand for optical communication systems, optical fiber communication. That's nothing but internet now. So we really developed basically, if you're sending signals through optical fiber, you have to amplify the signals. If you want to amplify the signals, you need to use another laser to amplify these signals which are also light again. So we developed those lasers, and they are very high power. So we had a world record output power, and then we in fact got new designs of these lasers. In fact, we took about 5 US patents, as you pointed out, and in fact we tried to commercialize our technology. So this was a time where I was spending, along with my colleague Jim Williams, about 18 months, 16-hour days, 7-day weeks, 1 week in here, 1 week in the Silicon Valley, and we started a company and then tried to commercialize technology. And in fact, after 18 months, we were about to get $20 million, and we were going through term sheets of, during the due diligence process. Nortel Networks in Canada has announced job cuts, and our investors got cold feet and saying that communications market is going to collapse, and then it may be very difficult to really fund you, sort of thing. So it's sort of, one way, it was sort of a frustrating time for me. I spent so much of my time and passion and energy into really commercialize some of the technologies which we developed here, but suddenly the market has changed. So that's what happens sometimes. So that's why you may have a great technology which you developed. You need to have the right technology at the right time, at the right place, at the right cost. So then only you can really, be able to be successful. But I've learned a lot, and it's been a great experience for me. And now I advise lots of companies, including overseas and Australia. Many of my students are running companies in China and Silicon Valley and all. And some of the students are working for companies even in Sydney, so making blue LEDs and UV LEDs and other things, sort of thing. So there's a lot of the skills which I gained have been very beneficial. So that gave me a much broader outlook about the world, rather than just being an academic and publish papers and things like that. Taking patents and then commercializing, make an effort to commercialize technologies. We've learned a lot about how to really deal with those things as well. For example, if you make a laser, you need to package it if you want to make it as a commercial product. The packaging technology to develop that one, it took more than 2 years for us. So that's why sometimes you may demonstrate an idea in the lab. If you really demonstrate and translate that idea into a commercial product, a lot of work needs to be put into that. So that's been a great learning experience for me. I encourage my students, instead of just going and finding a job, and then if you go and start a company, you can create more jobs. It's very, very satisfying, and also you can make a difference to the world. I very much encourage younger people to not only just look for jobs, always think about how can you be an entrepreneur, how can you make the difference to the world, and how can you really create the job sort of thing. So that's why entrepreneurship we need to encourage globally. And relatively speaking, Americans are much better than Europeans or Australians or Indians. So, but that's why we need to really change, at least train our younger generation to really be an entrepreneurs. Think about new ideas you got, or the new widget you developed, how to really commercialize that one. So if you do that one, then more and more knowledge-based industries will develop. So in the process, economy will also.
You think exactly is the success means? In what way you tell the success, and whoever comes all the way from India to Australia, in order to get their success in the life, so how do you see that?
So really, if you want to be successful in life, and most important thing is to choose something which you feel passionate about. And then of course you need to put the hard work needed for it. But then again, go step by step. Overnight you cannot be jumping to the top level sort of thing. And another thing is also develop the leadership skills. Instead of you being a great worker or a great technologist and great expert on something, how can I really bring my team together? How can I make the team to work together? How can I really inspire the team? How can we effectively communicate with them? And so that can help you to be able to climb the ladder even further. Lots of times people ask me, I'm technologically much better than so and so person, but so and so person got promoted better than before me, sort of thing. But then the thing is that that person potentially has got more leadership skills, ability to inspire the team, ability to really many of the technical experts to work as a team to achieve the goals of the projects, for example. And so then those communication skills and your leadership skills become important as well. So those are some things it's not you're not born with. You can learn. These are not the skills where somebody has got, somebody cannot learn. But it's a matter of realizing that one early stage of your career, and then start building that one gradually. So, how do I really, inspire people? How do I solve problems at workplace? Lots of times, interpersonal skills is a major issue. Yeah. How to work with difficult people? How to really, bring some common ground between two groups, those that got entirely different views or different points of view. How can you really make them to work as a team and make them to work together, sort of thing? So really, ultimately, the teamwork is an important one. So really, those days are gone where you're a lone intellectual or a smartest guy in the room, but you can really make the difference, sort of thing. So the smartest guy in the room is the one who can really make all the smart guys to work together and achieve the bigger and better goals for the institution or the organization, sort of thing. So that's why, means lots of times, you really need to think about how can I build a team together. But again, sometimes, you have to, the major difference between a manager and a leader is this. Manager wants everybody to do a good job and then wants to go and tell the world that he has done everything or she has done everything. The leader is the one who really wants everybody to do a good job, and he's the one who is going and telling people that how wonderful so and so their group members are. See, the ones you give more credit to your group members more than they deserve, they feel more inspired and more loyal, and then more feel that passionate, and they put more energy to it. If your team is successful, you are successful anyway. It's going to reflect on you. So that's why it is very important to give your team members more credit. So in the process, the credit comes to you. But again, I tell people, do good things for others, good things come to you.
How do you see all these years? You came back in 1981 to 1990 to Australia. What is the major difference you see in Australia from there till now?
So there's significant changes. For example, Australia has become a much more multicultural country. So the number of people coming from various parts of the world has grown quite significantly. And also, there's this, in general, there's a much better awareness in the society of having people from different parts of the world is a good thing. And so that's I think has been a very good change in the country. But of course, you do occasionally hear some of the right wing people trying to create a paranoia about everybody who is different than you are not going to be good for the country. But really, this world is becoming such a multicultural society now. So it is important we embrace various cultures and various people coming from the different parts of the world, and then in the process, collectively, we can make Australia as a better country and a great country.
One personal question I want to ask you: you look so knowledgeable, and like, okay, you don't do any other work other than your only work. Do you go partying?
Yeah, I mean, I don't do much of partying and other things. Unfortunately, fortunately, I don't drink, so I don't do much of alcohol or anything. And also, my music is much more of a classical music than going to a rock band or anything of that sort of thing. But of course, I mean, whenever I get a chance, and I like to go to art museums, for example. And so, even if I am in a big city and I rarely I get time to go and do anything social, most of the time I work and then go to the next place, sort of thing. But if I got a half an hour or 1 hour time, and I prefer to go to a national gallery, a local art gallery, and go and spend some time there. And so sometimes, means if I have any time, I may go to one of the concerts of means Philharmonic Orchestra, or one of the classical means the program, or the other sort of thing. And other than that, of course, I mean, I do attend some social activities. For example, means Indian functions, and I do attend them. For example, this month on the 9th of January, I'm supposed to go and then give a speech at this Prabhasi Bharatiya Divas. Indian High Commission has invited me to come and speak about the role of Indians in Australia, or otherwise, how can we really strengthen links between Australia and India, sort of thing. And I go to Telugu functions and Kannada functions, and of course, in Indian functions, I try to go, sort of thing. And so wherever I have got time, and I try to really help out. But most of the time I'm traveling, and then most of the time I'm too busy. And whenever I have even a little bit of time, I try to be of help to the community as well.
Good. What's the best place you visited in Australia? Which place you go out?
So the best place, of course, to live is Canberra. And of course, if I tell the average Australian that best place to live in Canberra, people always think that there is something wrong with me. And because a lot of people do the Canberra bashing. But really, the quality of life point of view, because this is a small city, being a capital city, you got all the facilities you want to have, and then anywhere you can be there in 20 minutes. Not much traffic, not much pollution, not much crime. So from that point of view, it's a great city to live, sort of thing. But of course, some of my favorite cities, places in the country are, for example, I love Cairns area. There's near Townsville, there's a nice place called Magnetic Island. It's a lovely island, and we go to holidays sometimes there, sort of thing. People, absolutely, it's a beautiful island and beautiful beaches, and also a lot of forests as well. You can do hiking, or you want to go to the beach or something. Again, the Cairns area is really beautiful birds and beautiful beaches, and then also rainforest and all these things. You can choose whatever you want to do, sort of thing. So northern Queensland, part of it is really beautiful part of the country, sort of thing. So amazing is that Australia is such a beautiful country, because again, Tasmania, is a beautiful part of the country, particularly summertime if you go there, and there's so much of greenery and so much of forests. It's a really great place to visit, sort of thing. So that's the beauty of Australia, is that there are so many different weather patterns, and so many parts of the country have got so different landscapes. So that's what makes it such a great continent and a country. And so there's a lot to explore. So I still haven't gone to the Uluru and that middle part of the country yet. So that's something which we plan to do sometime. And in fact, in February this month, my wife and I were going to New Zealand, which we haven't had. We both had gone to work purposes, but not gone as a holiday. So at the moment, I'm under enormous pressure from the university to take more holidays, because I've got too much accumulated holidays. So I promised them that I will start taking holidays now. So yeah, yeah.
So
Of course, most of the time I end up taking holidays, but keep working. And but now I'm under pressure to take holidays as well.
pressure. So, what do you tell to the migrants from India who are looking to migrate from India, either the students or the migrants who are actually working? What do you suggest or what do you tell to them to look after if I ask you?
Look after in the what?
What do you suggest for them? Okay, while education, what they should expect from Australia? Okay, in what sense?
Okay. So of course, whenever you come to a new country, it is different than the country which you lived in. So the way things work there is different than what the things work here. So that's something. Your important thing is that to be open-minded, be adaptable, learn the way the Australian system works, rather than expecting everything in Australia should be like what you are used to in India or some other part of the world. Because we all have to go to new places, and we always have to adapt ourselves to the new place and new culture and a new way of doing things and all things sort of thing. So once if you do that one, it becomes much more easier for you to really adjust to the Australian life. I can honestly say that traveling all over the world, as I mentioned to you earlier, that I have collaborated with people from 25 plus countries, and I never really felt that I want to live in another country. Really, a quality of life point of view, Australia is a great country. In fact, my father used to ask me, why you're not going to America, why you're living in Australia? I told him that, look, the quality of life in Australia is so much better than America. So that's why I stayed back in Australia, sort of thing. People always ask me, I get a lot of offers from all parts of the world and on a quite regular basis. And they offer quite tempting offers as well. And but then I say that, look, I'm very happy here. It's a great country to live. So then what, you see, there's no perfect place in this world. There's always a compromise wherever you go. So the important thing is that, if the positives and are outweighing negatives, you go and choose that place. So from that point of view, positives outweigh negatives in Australia much more significantly. So that's why Australia is a great country to live. So adaptability is one thing, but also believe in yourself and then learn new things, new way of doing things. And then if you adapt yourself, put the hard work needed, and everything is possible in Australia.
I think Australian government is also giving, as you said before, the government is also giving very much a bigger scope to all the migrants, major to Indians also, with respect to all sort of sponsorships or whatever it is. Is that right?
Yes, absolutely. I mean, so basically, particularly the Prime Minister Malcolm Turnbull has been saying that we want to be an innovation country. How can you be an innovation country? You can only be an innovation country by, you know, by willing to attract the brightest brains in the world to Australia, so thereby they can contribute to the society here, industries here, and so they become a with intellectual workforce, knowledge workers, or knowledge people, employees. So these are the people, those who can make the difference to the country. Because see, Australia has relied on the resources for a long time. But then, at the moment, what's happening is that we don't know how long these resources will last. That's one worry. Second thing is that resource prices are very fluctuating, and then they can go up and down and all these things depending on the demand of other countries. So that's why we need to really move towards knowledge-based economy. Knowledge-based economy means people from various parts of the world with the right skills can come and work here. Government, of course, very much encourages that sort of thing, which is a good thing. And so again, these things are not going to happen overnight. So that's why if you want to build a knowledge-based economy, knowledge-based industries, it's a 20 or 30-year plan. So that's why the governments of either side of the politics which they come from, they need to really thinking long term. How can I really make a mark of this country? How can I make the difference to this country in terms of really coming with a long term strategic, and in fact, in my view, a bipartisan support sort of thing. Look, we want to really develop the knowledge based industries, and then we really want to embrace anybody who is bright and have got the right skills. We want them. It doesn't matter where they come from. And so that really makes a huge difference. For Indians particularly, I would encourage you to really look, if you really want to live, have a good quality of life and quiet life, Australia is a great country to study and live as well. And so, of course, our universities are world class. And so from that point, if you want to study, then you're coming to country with the world class education system. And then if you want to come and work here, and then again, Australia provides great opportunities, and particularly not only for you but your family as well. But also that the government is also encouraging the visa systems for the parents, visa system, long-term visas, for example, 5-year visas for parents to come and visit as and when they want to come and things like that sort of thing. So that's again, government is encouraging. It's important for people to really be able to have their families to come and spend time with them. And I think they're all very progressive and good.
Field, or after that, is there anything that you wanted to do, or
So basically, I mean, I plan to work, as long as I can. But generally, there's though in Australia at the moment there's no forced age retirement, because there's an anti-age discrimination law, which doesn't allow the institution to force you to retire. But in the old days, we used to have 65 years as the retirement age. At least my thinking is that I will retire when I turn 65. But it makes no difference as far as my work is concerned, because one of the good things with working as university academic is that you can go back next day as emeritus professor. So then you can still continue to do your research and other things. The only difference is that the salary is not coming from the university, your pension is coming from your superannuation fund. Other than that, there is no major change sort of thing. So that at least helps me to be able to really allow my next generation of younger researchers, in fact, my own students are now working as professors in my own group. So they can start providing the leadership. And so that gives them the opportunity also to prove themselves as well. So that's a good opportunity as well. And probably I'll be doing a bit more traveling. And so, but not traveling in this case, probably more of doing a bit of sightseeing, other things as well. And of course, I'll probably be doing more charitable work as well, sort of thing. Because ultimately, for me, the most satisfying thing is to really make the difference to others. So, in one form or the other. So then I'll get more and more involved in the charitable activities and other things, sort of thing, because that's important for me. And so, making in a small way, if you can make a difference to others, that gives you much more happiness. In fact, pleasure of giving is much more than pleasure of taking. And then I always tell people that you have to pity people, those who have never experienced the pleasure of giving, because they don't know what they're missing out.
yeah? So if I ask Jagat, as a person, what is your success mantra till now? You're achieved. If you feel like it's achieved, what made you to be in this position at this point of time? What is the success behind? Like, whether it's your attitude, or it's your hard work, or it's your knowledge? What is?
So everything, because the thing is that means knowledge alone can really and cannot take you wherever you want to reach. But by the way, I never really said that I want to reach to that particular point. So whenever I've done is that I always tell people this, that don't worry about the past, learn from your past experiences, and then the focus on the present. The future will look after itself. Keep an eye on the future, but at the same time, means if you are really not worrying about the future, if you are not looking after the present, future is going to be bleak. If you do an excellent job in the present, future will look after itself. Because of the fact that if you're doing an excellent job, people around you acknowledge and recognize that you're doing an outstanding job, and then you get the next opportunity and they ask you to do the next thing and the next thing, sort of thing. But most interestingly, also that not only I do my own research, and I also do a lot of voluntary things as well in the scientific field as well. I served as a vice president of the Australian Academy of Science for 4 years from 2012 to 2016. So that's been a lot of work. Of course, you don't get paid or anything, that's a purely voluntary work. But that really gave me the opportunity to be able to provide the leadership to the Australian science at the highest levels, and then be able to interact with various ministers and shadow ministers and various politicians, so that make them aware of the importance of science and technology and what difference that's going to make to the society and the community and then the country, sort of thing, and also inspire the younger generation and other things. I've also globally served as a president of the IEEE Nanotechnology Council, and which is a global body, which is really determining what is important for the nanotechnology in the future. also running some conferences and journals and awards and various things sort of thing. I just got been elected as the president-elect of the IEEE Photonics Society. Again, it's a global body which is in the field of photonics. And so that again provides me the opportunity to be able to provide a broadest leadership possible. And currently I'm serving as the president of the Australian Material Research Society, again providing leadership there sort of thing. So really, this is something which that gives me not only doing my own research and training my own students and publishing papers and taking patents and other things, and be able to do a broader impact things. Those are things which makes me very happy. I'm not just a lone guy who's sitting in a corner and then churning through papers, but then really I'm able to make an impact in the broader sense and inspiring a lot of younger people as well.
So, okay. Lastly, if I ask you, what is a proud moment in your life which you achieved, and what is the moment that you felt very sad? Okay, I haven't achieved this till now, or what you wanted to achieve in the future? Is there anything there?
Means really, basically, of course, I've been a very, I've been a very contented person. In the sense that I've been very happy. Means I never really felt unhappy in general, sort of thing. But even, of course, when I have failed in some things, for example, one of the things which I feel that I failed is this commercialization of technologies. I wish our company was very successful for simple reason that would have made a huge impact and also been able to act like a role model for others in the university sector to see that you can start from the basic science, develop the technologies and do the commercialization within Australia as well. So if you want to ask me, what are the, if you want to, the sort of, you feel that you're not satisfied, you would have been, you would have been in better shape in terms of being able to make something happen. So that's one area which you can say that probably I failed sort of thing. Of course, I've learned a lot. And so from that perspective, it's not a failure. But then, of course, we didn't make that company to be successful. But also I've learned also that, you may have a great technology, the marketplace can change quite quickly. So then that's beyond you. So that's something which you need to realize. That however wonderful technology is, that in itself is not going to make a commercial success. So that's one thing which I've learned. So that's one thing, if you want to call it as this thing. And so in terms of other regrets, if I have to say something, maybe I should have spent more time with my daughter when she was young. But again, I was so passionate about my science and I was so busy. I was traveling and I was building up. See, it's a brand new department when I joined and we didn't have any facilities. And now we built up more than $20 billion worth of facilities during the last 26 years or so. So that didn't happen overnight. And that means some people had to put a lot of effort. And then, of course, I put a lot of effort in that sort of thing. So now, of course, she's 26-year-old and she's married and then she's got her own life. So in the process, that's one thing, one regret which I have, which probably I should have spent more time when she was little sort of thing.
Which is a proud moment if I ask you, okay, I have achieved this.
Yes.
It gives more pleasure, more happy for you.
Yes, I'll come to that. Yes. So yes, so I'll come to that. And the other regret which I have is that I should have called my mother more often. And I should have visited my mother more often. So unfortunately, both my mother and father passed away. And my mother passed away unexpectedly at the age of 64. Then I realized that how not to be sort of, in terms of the way you behaved sort of thing. So that's sort of a regret which I have in my life that I should have, called, because in those days also the phone calls used to be quite expensive and like $2 a minute and things, so that sort of thing. And also in the villages where my mother was there and all, there was no phone as well. So it didn't help as well. So probably I should have visited more often. When she moved to my sister's place, probably I would have called her more often as well. So those are the two regrets which I have. I should have spent more time with my daughter. I should have visited my mother and father more often. That's why I tell younger people that, don't miss your children's childhood because it only comes once. Please enjoy that. But again, parents are the ones, those who love you unconditionally, whether you're beautiful or ugly or you're smart or dumb, it doesn't really matter. For you, you're special and they love you. So that's why you better go and then spend quality time with them and visit them and talk to them more as often as you can. And also express your gratitude to them. they teach us so much and they do so many things for us. We take them for granted. So, in terms of proudest moment, probably I have to say that probably getting AC, which I have never really expected. I was not even aware that I have been nominated. So when I got a letter from the Governor General's office asking me if you are given a Companion of Order of Australia, would you be accepting it? And of course, I said yes. But that's the first time I came to know sort of thing. So that's the sort of I never really dreamt of being an Indian. Started in a small village in India, it is possible to really get something like Companion of Order of Australia. As you know, that the Companion of Order of Australia is mainly given to people like the former politicians and former prime ministers like John Howard, or other politicians like Kim Beazley got it, and Peter Costello and other people, or otherwise some business leaders got it, sort of thing. And so occasionally a vice chancellor of the university or something. And I didn't really choose to go in to become a deputy vice chancellor or dean or all these things. I stayed as a scientist, and then being able to get to that highest honor is very humbling for me, and for which I am most grateful.
Congratulations once again, sir. Also, thank you very much for giving your time.